Losing the weight is not the hard part. Keeping the identity that comes after, that's the hard part. Okay, so we're not talking about a glow up. It's not just a superficial change. It's a complete identity replacement. You're literally not the same person you were, not just physically, but spiritually and mentally. And nobody usually prepares you for what comes after. If you know, you've heard this saying, what is it? Be careful what you wish for. This is a perfect example of things that can be very different from what you expect when you do get what you wish for. Hey, hello everyone. This is Gonzo Herrera from Rice 41. And today for this video, this one's personal and I'm going to share it with you. And it's about, so what happens? This is something that a lot of people I don't think about. I know I didn't until I found myself here. And it is this, the topic, the general idea. And this is going to be kind of a stream of thought, observations, hopefully that you will find useful. And it is this. So what actually does happen after you have a successful transformation? And now you've changed your life, you've changed your entire physique, the way you do things. Basically, you're a brand new person at the end of your transformation. And now you've got to do life as this new person. So what does that mean? How does that happen? How do you work through it? Are there pitfalls to it? What are the benefits to it? We're going to touch on all of that during this episode, which is about the cost of reinvention. Let's get into it. Okay, so first, let me say something that most people in fitness who are interested in fitness don't understand or they won't say out loud. Losing the weight is not the hard part. Keeping the identity that comes after, that's the hard part. Okay, so we're not talking about a glow up. It's not just a superficial change. It's a complete identity replacement. You're literally not the same person you were, not just physically, but spiritually and mentally. And nobody usually prepares you for what comes after. If you know, you've heard this saying, what is it? Be careful what you wish for. This is a perfect example of things that can be very different from what you expect when you do get what you wish for. So first, let's talk about the first act in this play of observation, and it's the old you. Let's talk about that. So this is the version of you that people won't romanticize. Okay, this is my old version. In post-production, I'll probably put some pictures up here. Ka-ting, ka-ting. This is what I used to look like before I transformed, before I decided to change my life. This is me at about, I'm 5'8". This is me at about 280 pounds. Alcohol wasn't occasional. It was part of my everyday routine in life. I was a functional alcoholic looking back on it. It was part of the rhythm. It was part of what gave me dopamine. It was part of what made, life worth living. Which is scary. Food wasn't just fuel, it was comfort. Food was also escape. Food was also a reward. If I felt good, if I felt bad, if I felt good, I ate something. If I felt bad, I ate something. To feel was always accompanied with food, so my energy level, of course, being that overweight and smoking. Back then I used to smoke cigarettes, I think, even though I quit 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago. But that was still a factor, my energy was super low and I normalized it in my head. Like, I feel fine. And of course you feel fine when you're numb from alcohol and from like a pattern of gluttonous food behavior, because you've got the food, you've got everything, work wasn't being affected all that much. I was a very good functional alcoholic. I never showed up to work drunk or anything of the sort. I was just the kind of alcoholic that would have 2 or 3 drinks every night, which slowly got more and more to the point that I was, putting myself to sleep after 2 or 3 drinks and not being very functional. I was not good to the people around me. I was not present. I wasn't just overweight. I was living in a system that kept me there. And that's something that I realized looking back on it now, like as I've developed all these programs and learned about nutrition and health and fitness and all that, and the systems that are especially as a person with ADHD, that need to be in place, or that I need to put in place in order to do life better and truly enjoy it. First part of it is realizing what the problem is, right? You can fix a problem, but you don't know that there is a problem. So my identity anchors back then, what defined me as a person, how I saw myself as a person, were things like, I'm just a big fat guy. That's just how it is. I was just fat. That's what I like to enjoy life. YOLO, woo! So that would justify any of these self-destructive behaviors, because it was about, like, thinking about myself first, which I'm ashamed to say I did a lot. And it was about enjoying life, to the fullest. We might not be here tomorrow, but to a degree that was almost nihilistic. So, oh, I was definitely not one of those obsessive fitness people. To me back then, fitness people, there's something wrong with those people. Those people enjoy suffering and not enjoying life. And I don't know what's up with them. So, and the thing was, my environment reinforced that identity because I had made it so. So we would not buy healthy foods at the house. I'd buy fast food once or twice a day. You know, Time was pressing. The kids had to be here, there, everywhere. We have to do dinner. So McDonald's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, call it what just constant junk. I remember talking with my with my wife the other day, reminiscing. We've both made huge transformations. Uh, and remembering how we would smash, like, we'd buy like a Big Mac large meal, and I'd buy like an extra Big Mac, and then we'd buy an extra set of large fries to the split between our combo meals. That was like one meal. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's probably like 2,000 calories just in the one meal, let alone the rest of the day, plus alcohol on top of that, which is full of calories. So, I mean, it's just crazy. So, another thing that made it in my environment, it's like, so my friends drink. I grew up in a society that glorifies drinking. Everything is drinking in Puerto Rico. Every event is food and drink. Everything. Child's baptism, you go out drinking, partying with your friends. Wedding, drinking with the friends. Celebrating somebody had a promotion at work or had a good day. I mean, drinking. Thursdays, pre-social Friday, social Friday, Saturday night, drinking, drinking, drinking. That's what we did. All the social events revolved around drinking and food, both. And nobody expected anything from me at that point. I was in my late 30s, early 40s. So everyone was like, well, that's what you are. But then, your identity is pretty much cemented. This is where we are, after all, right? So, and I didn't expect more from myself. So, and that version of me wasn't just habits, it was an entire dysfunctional, full operating system, of which I was the computer running that operating system, right? Without realizing it. I had somehow gravitated towards there, probably chasing some trying to feel better. I've done a lot of work in this field. It's the whole dopamine chase. It's the whole, like, life was really hard. I went through tragic events in my youth. So now I deserve to enjoy life. This second chance I've got, which ironically I'm throwing away, right? As you hear. So, okay. And now let's talk about the transformation itself. I hit rock bottom at some point where I was like, okay, something's got to change. Something has to flip. And it was not a matter of motivation. This is very important for people to understand. It wasn't a matter of like, I'm motivated to do it. It was not an emotional response. It was a logical decision. Anyone who asked me, I feel like in that moment, it was almost like a decision point of like, get busy living or get busy dying this way. And the only way to live is to fix or change all this, transform all this. I don't want to be 280 pounds, 290 pounds, at 5'8", middle aged, a big sack of flour sitting on a couch all day. I don't want to be that guy. I mean, I remember, another thing that, this is really weird. Another thing that kind of motivated me or helped me make that change and see the possible was, um, back in, I think it was 2006 or 2008, whenever Casino Royale came out, the first James Bond with Daniel Craig movie. And I think he's slightly older than I am, or about the same age. And I remember seeing that dude, how he moved and how he did things. I was like, shit, if that guy can do it, anyone can do it. Clearly, age is not the issue. Something else is going on. It was like this big click aha moment, you know, after watching, and it was for some reason something about that movie in particular because he's well, he played. It's the first time we see Bond as a physical brute and not just this refined, suave gentleman, that was more like charm and charisma. It's just this brutish, raw kind of agent thing going on, and seeing like that you could be like that, imposing and healthy and fit even in middle age. Something hit, and that was part of the, I don't know why that movie struck me so much. I've always been a Bond fan, I guess, but it was that realization, like, this is not just for young people. This could be at any point in your life. You could be in your 60s and have this realization and change your life. I mean, think about it. People live to be 80 now, so even if you do it at your, say, 60s, you still got 20 years to live, man. That's a long time. That is not a short period of time, all things considered. So anyway, so it wasn't, again, it was not a matter. Maybe the Bond thing was inspiration rather than motivation, but it was ultimately a decision where I said, I'm going to research how to do this. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to learn. So I started training. I cleaned up my diet, started learning about that. Alcohol was eliminated because it got to that point where I was like, this cannot be part of my life. I can't control it. I can't guarantee that if I take one drink, that'll stop at one drink. So better to remove that trigger completely. Structure began to enter my life, and slowly, as I make these changes and start, this works, this doesn't work, this seems to work better. These You start becoming someone else at this point, is my point, as you do these things and you start replacing parts of the operating system, right? Or upgrade. So the external changes, the things that people saw, were very obvious. Like, so the weight drop, everyone, what are you doing? You look great. All that good stuff. Your body tightens up, you start getting some muscle, people start noticing, you start getting compliments, which was something that I'd never had. I've always had fairly low self-esteem as far as my physicality, always from being, fat and not in shape. I was not the guy that got the girl, in high school, that kind of thing. So, but internally, more interestingly, there were some other changes that were not as obvious, but I started feeling more in control. More, and by in control, I don't mean that in a megalomaniac way. More in control as in, if I do this, I can see this, the output of the results being that, and I can control this. More food, less weight loss, or less food, better nutritional balance, healthier foods. I feel better. So you start feeling that control coming back, that you realize that yes, these are changes that are having an actual effect. Okay, you start trusting yourself a little bit more. Like right now, I know I could walk into a bar right now and there is literally 0% chance that I'll have alcohol. I have zero interest in it. Like, matter of fact, I've found, and sorry to my friends that still drink, but when I go into a scenario where there's people drinking in a social scenario and they're like a little tipsy or whatever, I just find it amusing and or boring usually, because they start repeating themselves and telling you the same story, and you're just not in that same wavelength. So it's, it's not as quite as fun, not quite. And I started stacking those wins. The weight was, I was feeling better, looking better. Clothes were, buying new clothes that look cool, instead of in the big and tall section, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people think, like, so once I hit my goal, my initial goal, like, I think a lot of people think the story ends like right there, right? But when you think about it, this is where the story actually begins. And what am I saying now? The third act of this play, if you will, which is the identity shock. So you lose your escape is the first thing. When you remove alcohol and you remove food as comfort, you're just not removing habits. You're removing these were, I didn't realize it, but these were my coping mechanisms. And this is what I used for stress, for anxiety, for, I mean, any excuse. These were my coping mechanisms, bad situation, something negative, food, drink. Bad situation at work, stressful day, food, drink. and so on and so forth. So, but what do you do in this new version? Are you were like, because stress is still gonna be there, work is gonna be work, and there'll be some stress in life. Anxiety is definitely still gonna be there because you're a human, and there's anxiety to the things that we do. Some old thoughts are definitely going to still be there. The further out I go, the easier it gets to deal. But every once in a while, they'll pop in. So the thing is, like, now all of this stuff that you used to hide and have a coping mechanism for, you're actually feeling them right now. You're feeling these things right now. So you realize you weren't broken at all before. You were just numb, completely numb to all these stressors. So it's one thing to keep in mind as you go through the transformation, that you're going to have, once you get what you wish, you got to control that landing, and you got to be aware of this. Again, the thing to remember is that it was not that I was broken. It was that I was so numb that I could cope with all these negative things and justify them. So now, another thing that happens once you get to that goal is, quite possibly, it happened to me, and I think it happens to most everybody, is that your social world will shift once you're this new person, once you've put in these systems for human optimization, I call it, or for like life improvement. So, and it gets uncomfortable because your friends start to question you, like, how come just have a beer just this one time? It's okay. We're gonna go hang out at the club or whatever, at the bar, or it's such and such's birthday, and we're gonna grab a couple beers after work, you know. And when you answer, you have to be ready and be aware that, because, you're going to say, no, thanks, I'm not interested in going. Or when you go, you're not participating actively in, you know, drinking or eating whatever delicious yet completely unhealthy thing we're all working on here. They're going to tell you things like, you've changed, and you're too strict. Maybe. I don't know about too strict, but I am going to be stricter because I have goals now that are not compatible with this activity. I know it's the one drink won't kill you this one time, but I know in my heart of hearts that I am a alcoholic and I have an addictive personality. So one drink might kill me because it's not going to be one. If I go down that road, that one is going to be many, and I can't tell you how many, but it'll be bad. So why go down that road in the first place? So as a result of all this, some of the relationships you may have will weaken. Some of them will fade. Some of them will actually disappear because, ultimately, if you come away with, there's going to be a couple of hopefully key elements of information in this video. And this is one of them. And it's that I didn't realize that growth is expensive. And sometimes the price of that growth is people. It's friends that at this point you just don't share enough or see things in such a similar way that it makes the friendship be incompatible or more distant. It definitely changes. So another part, which I did not expect, but it's true 100%, and I will share it with you because this is the weirdest part of the whole thing, is that you don't fully recognize yourself. You look different, you act different, and you actually think differently. But internally, there's kind of like a little lag. Your body updates way faster than your identity. So you're going to look this way and feel this way. But, in my head, there are days that I'll wake up and I'm still that fat boy. I'm that fat kid, still, even though I'm like arguably in the best shape I've ever been in my entire life. But because you're basically walking around in this new body, but you still have traces of that old internal blueprint or operating system that was running everything. And that's kind of hard. That's kind of hard. And then another piece of this is that body image. Let's talk about body image. What got you here in the first place? It doesn't fix itself. you think it would, right? Like, oh, I got muscle now, 10% body fat. Woo, great. At 10% body fat, I still see flaws. I still compare myself to better physiques. Human thing. I raised my own standard. So it's funny because I didn't really solve insecurity. I didn't. I'm still somewhat insecure. but I upgraded my insecurity to be way higher levels of demand to be insecure about rather than this entry level when I was like obese, you know? Another realization too, as you go into your new identity and the way you do things, is that discipline can absolutely turn into a trap. And what do I mean by that? Let me explain that a little bit to give you some context. So the traits that saved you can also start to control you, especially if you're, again, ADHD or have any kind of a obsessive behavior, addictive behavior. Okay. So obsession with food now, instead of obsession of like, I'll just eat whatever, it's the obsession of I have to eat healthy and only healthy and all this, which is like the extreme, right? The extreme behavior, because ultimately it has to be repeatable and healthy. And what I've learned after that, because I did have this issue at first, is like I have to be strict. I can't go back to being the fat guy again. Is realizing that there is a balance here. Because I will absolutely eat some chocolate cake and ice cream on my daughter's birthday. I just did last weekend. It was amazing, you know? But I won't eat birthday and ice cream every single night though. On that occasion, it makes perfect sense. You know, you give yourself that space and that grace, and you got to figure that out because you're still a part of a society of human beings, and you want to share and be part of it. You know, you don't want to isolate yourself because you're so extreme with your discipline. Another one that I used to get a lot of anxiety was around missing workouts. I'll be honest, I still get a little anxiety. If I'm supposed to work out a certain day and I can't make it, it definitely gives me anxiety. So, but I have to tell myself when that happens, remember, it will happen. It's part of being human. Nothing is perfect, and it's perfectly okay to skip a workout. Like it's not it's you because in the end it's the long-term picture. If you have 95% compliance or 90% compliance, that extra 5 or 10% of non-compliance really in the large 30,000 foot view of things, it's not relevant. You're still going to get to your goal. It's not detrimental to your goal. As a matter of fact, one could argue it's probably positive because it allows you to like relax a little bit and, don't deny yourself things because I do enjoy food now. Like I do. I like I said, cake and ice cream. That's awesome. The thing is, I've learned ways to enjoy it where it doesn't control me either. So there's that. The another thing that you gotta be mindful of with your new version of discipline and the new you is that loss of flexibility. Like I said before, you have to be aware of like there will be times where you miss a workout, and there'll be times that you're too tired, or you will be ill, or you will have a social event that you should and rightfully should be present and enjoy. And it might not be the healthiest thing to skip. So you have to participate in that and be okay with that, and just be fine with that. With giving yourself grace to be human, okay, and that you can make mistakes and it's okay. Like it took you a long time to get really, really big and huge and fat. If you're healthy, it would take you again a long, long time to do that same thing. So allow yourself a little bit of grace and space there. It's okay. So, I mean, you went from chaos to control, but now you have to learn that balance. I guess it's the summary of this whole discipline can turn into a diatribe I just described. So, all right. So now let's talk about the upside. Enough with the doom and gloom. Okay. It's a massive upgrade. When you take a step back, this version of me is way better than the original version of me. And that's what matters. The ultimate, the upgrade to yourself that you've done, and be aware of it and celebrate it. So first, self-trust, man. Like you trust yourself now, right? Because now you know that if you say something, you have the grit and grind to do it, and you will do it. So that's an incredible feeling and very liberating feeling of like, if I set my mind to do it with a plan, even if I fail at first, eventually I'll be able to do it, whatever it is. That's really empowering, and that changes everything. The next thing you have is clarity. So your brain, I don't know how to explain, like your brain gets quieter. There's like less chaos because you know the systems and the things that you have to do. There's less guilt. There's less fatigue too because you know the decisions of what you have to do once you enable these systems, they're part of you. You do them automatically. You go to the gym, you eat right, whatever it is, you sleep your 7 or 8 hours, whatever it is, So next thing that is an upgrade also is that your standards, man, you can't go back to the old version of you because you've been there and you know what that's like. And you know what this is like, what you're doing now. And there's no there's no way you want to go back to that thing, or you would have gotten here in the first place and made all that effort. So it's not that you just physically can't. It's if you somehow end up back there, all the way back there, you're not going to respect yourself. And that's powerful motivation, from a logical even standpoint, not just emotional, you know the other thing, capability, like I mentioned before, you've proven something dangerous that you can change. Okay. And that realization alone that you can change and you can be the agent of change for yourself. I mean, it shifts how you approach everything because you can, be it business, relationships, life, the tools that you developed during your transformation from then to this, you can apply in everything. In a good business deal, the way you work your career, your relationships with other people, all of these things that may require effort and grind, you now have a system. You now know how to do. So anyway, and then the last thing, it's my realization after being who I am now. It's how do can I help others navigate this, which is the entire point of this video. It's so that, again, hopefully you'll watch it and give this some thought, because it might apply to you and you'll get something positive out of having spent the whatever half hour, 40 minutes that this video is going to ask of you. But so I'm not going to sell fat loss as just fat loss as a coach. Okay. That's not what I'm going to do. Or as a human being talking to another person. This will change. Doing this transformation will change so much more than just the weight on the scale. It's going to change how you think. It's going to change who you spend time with, the quality of the relationships with other people and how you experience them and how you see yourself. Those are very deep core identity transformation issues. And, this process will get you there and optimize you. And it'll be for the positive that you get these changes. So be aware of that. It's not just dropping the scale, or the pounds on the scale. That's just a measurement, you know. And that's not the only change. The tools and how we get to make that change you completely, for the better. For the better. The other thing to consider is, as you go through this transformation, I wish I'd thought of this while I was going through mine, but hindsight 2020. Build a new identity as you go that's intentional. Like, do it intentionally. So, who am I now? Ask yourself these things. Who am I now? What do I stand for? What are my standards? Have this conversation with yourself. Because if you don't define these things, like who you are, what you stand for, and what your standards are, you're going to drift. If you don't have a clear, think of it as guardrails for what you're trying to do. Because you should know, like, what's in, what's out, what's valid, what's not valid, what works for you. That's part of the transformation process. And that's one of the things that I teach my clients, is to start looking at, these things are now no longer acceptable. And these things are still in play. And you don't have to go all out. This is actually something I ask myself every day. At some point, it's an ongoing evolution of the development of the self. So another thing that I learned that I wish somebody had taught me is that you replace, you don't just remove things. Because if you remove, there's a vacuum. And when there's a vacuum, nature abhors the vacuum, and life does too. So in my case, I removed, just to name two things, alcohol and junk habits that weren't doing anything for me. But I added structure and purpose and better environments. I avoided the situations that put me wanting to eat that bad food, or drink that, that take that drink, and overdo it with my friends and party. So remember, a vacuum always gets filled. So make sure you choose what it's going to get filled with. Have a plan. Again, positive intent. What is it that you're doing that's going to keep you busy? Uh, it might actually be a hobby or something like that. Like you used to spend time at the bar, now you're at home and you've got all the spare time. Well, get a hobby that you like, something you actually enjoy doing, something that maybe you could not have done when you were drinking, in this case, in my case. Uh, I don't know. I was thinking, I hadn't done it in a while, but like target shooting used to be super fun for me. I'd go to the range and just shoot steel plates or whatever. I don't know, playing a role playing game or a tabletop game with my friends. That used to take a lot of time. It was good because it didn't involve drinking, so it was great. So these were the things that would like start changing, and that you can be aware of. So, which leads to the other thing, that be aware that you're trying to normalize your social friction. Because if nobody at all is uncomfortable with your growth, it's probably not real growth. Okay, if you, when you're growing and changing, some people will be uncomfortable because of you're changing relationship with them. So be aware of that. And the other thing, couple other things in closing. I'll be brief. Try to avoid extremes, especially if you have an addictive personality. That's totally normal. That you'll go, to the moon with whatever the new thing is. You'll be extreme. ADHD makes this even worse too. So, like, don't go from undisciplined to like robotic. I must do all this. It's all like, if you do that, again, your quality of life will suffer, and it just makes everything less enjoyable in life. You should get some enjoyment and fulfillment out of this effort you've made and this transformation that you've achieved or are achieving. That's kind of the point. So again, keep some flexibility in what you do. 90% compliance is fine. An off day here, a cheat meal there, it's perfectly fine. Okay, that's not going to derail you. A cheat week, now that might derail you, right? Or not going to the gym for like a month straight, even though you're perfectly healthy and capable. That's probably not going to be the best thing. So you see what I mean, though. Avoid those extremes. And the other thing, be okay with being misunderstood. This is another thing that I wish somebody had given me the heads up, earlier in the process. The new version of me is not going to make sense to people who only knew the old version. It won't. They'll be like, what happened to the drinking, funny, fat guy? It's like, no, he's evolved. It's this. And this guy, can try and be funny just without the alcohol. Hopefully, we can still share a conversation and some growth and opportunities to socialize. So again, um, it might not make sense to my old drinking buddies what I do. Because it's drinking to them is so important that if you don't, it's like they can't even communicate with you. So be aware of that and be okay with being misunderstood. And the people you value, the people that you love, um, it's okay if they misunderstand you. Give them some grace. Always explain if they have a question or they don't understand what you're doing. But yeah, it's okay to be misunderstood, especially as you make all these changes that are radical to your life. So, it's completely normal. So anyway, so in closing, going from 280 pounds to 10% body fat isn't just a physical transformation. It was not, at least in my case. It was a reconstruction of my identity. And you don't just lose weight. Remember, you're going to lose behaviors, environments, relationships, and some beliefs. And if you don't consciously build the new version of yourself, you'll either drift because you won't have those guardrails to kind of keep you on track, or you're going to self-sabotage all the way back, which hopefully won't happen. At this point, you're like so committed and new systems are in place that doesn't happen. So remember, the real goal isn't just to stay lean, okay, or get lean. The goal is to become someone who can live at that level physically, mentally, and emotionally, okay? So, in closing, if you're in the middle of this or you're about to start that transformation, you're considering this big change, you need to understand what you're signing up for. If you're going to reach out for our coaching services, lifestyle optimization services, you should be aware of all this, definitely, because these are things and subjects and topics that will be raised. And it, again, it's more than just fitness. It's your identity, your whole self. You're rebooting yourself into an improved version of you. So if you want help, in closing, building that system, applying what to look for, having a structure, a plan, a game plan. That's what we do with Rise 41 coaching. Click on the links below. There's plenty of links. We do an initial 15 to 20-minute consultation to see if you're a good fit for our program and if we're a good fit for you. So please feel free to book that if you want. And yeah, get your strategy call. If this is something that intrigues you, that you really, truly want to do, you don't have to do it by yourself. Contact us. We'll be glad to help you and work with you. All right. And with that, I hope this was informative, if somewhat entertaining, that you got a couple things out of it. And well, thank you so much for your time and attention. And Gonzo from Rise 41 signing off. Have a wonderful day.